Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something truly special, a brutal lesson in human evolution disguised as a survival story. We're exploring why you, yes you, the person who gets winded walking up 2 flights of stairs, wouldn't last a single day in the Stone Age. The same Stone Age that forged our species into something capable of eventually inventing air conditioning, delivery pizza, and the profound luxury of complaining about fee speeds. So before we begin this journey into prehistoric humiliation, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're genuinely ready to have your modern sensibilities absolutely demolished by reality. And drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and what creature comforts you're currently enjoying, your heated home, your reliable electricity, your complete lack of saber-toothed cats trying to eat your face. It's always humbling to see how many of us are living lives our ancestors could never have imagined. Now, get comfortable in whatever soft, predator-free environment you're in. Maybe grab a snack from your magically stocked kitchen, dim those electric lights, and prepare to appreciate just how miraculous your boring, safe, modern existence really is. Because tonight, we're going back to humanity's boot camp, the Stone Age, where every sunrise was a victory and every sunset was a miracle. So, you think you could handle life as a prehistoric human? That's precious. Really like a goldfish thinking it could survive in the ocean. Let's see how long your confidence lasts when we strip away everything civilization has given you and drop you into the world that nearly killed our species before it could invent the concept of almost killed our species. Welcome to your Stone Age reality check. Spoiler alert, you're not going to like how this ends. So you think you're tough? You think because you can open a pickle jar without asking for help, or because you once watched 3 seasons of a survival show while eating pizza that you could handle the Stone Age. Let me paint you a picture of your first and final day as a Paleolithic human. Back when dinner had to be chased down on foot, and your biggest life decision was whether that rustling bush contained berries or a saber-toothed cat with commitment issues. It's dawn, roughly 40,000 years ago. Congratulations, you've just been dropped into humanity's most brutal internship program. No coffee, no alarm clock. Just the gentle wake-up call of your empty stomach trying to digest itself, and the distant roar of something that definitely wants to turn you into breakfast. You're lying on the ground because beds haven't been invented yet, and neither has the concept of sleeping in. The Stone Age doesn't believe in weekends. Your first mistake, assuming you'd wake up at all. See, while you were dreaming about modern conveniences like toilet paper and antibiotics, 17 different predators were having a heated discussion about whether you'd taste better grilled or raw. The only reason you're still breathing is because a pack of wolves got distracted by easier prey, namely your neighbor Gary, who thought he could outrun a dire wolf. Spoiler alert, he couldn't. But let's say you survived the night. You're awake now, and your body is already filing complaints. Your back aches from sleeping on rocks that seemed soft compared to the alternative of sleeping standing up. Your joints creak like an old ship, and you haven't even moved yet. This is your body's way of saying, remember when we had mattresses? Good times. Time to assess your situation. You're cold, wet from the morning dew, and completely naked because clothing is still a revolutionary concept that won't catch on for a few thousand years. Your skin is already turning an interesting shade of blue, and hypothermia is sending you a friend request. But don't worry about the cold too much, because you're about to have bigger problems. Your stomach growls, and it's not asking politely. It's demanding food with the urgency of a tax collector. Unfortunately, the Stone Age didn't come with a complimentary breakfast buffet. There's no drive-through, no grocery store, no friendly neighbor offering leftover casserole. There's just you, the wilderness, and your complete ignorance about what's edible versus what will kill you in creative ways. You stumble to your feet, already dizzy from hunger and dehydration. Standing upright seems like such a simple thing, until you realize you've been doing it wrong your entire modern life. Your ancestors had to earn their posture through constant vigilance and the ever-present threat of being eaten. Every step was calculated, every movement deliberate. You, on the other hand, walk like someone who's spent the last decade sitting in office chairs, which is to say, poorly. The landscape around you is both beautiful and terrifying. Vast grasslands stretch to the horizon, dotted with clusters of trees that could hide anything from harmless rabbits to creatures that make horror movies look like children's bedtime stories. The sky is a brilliant blue, unmarred by pollution or aircraft, but also unmarred by any sign of civilization, rescue or hope. You need water first. This seems obvious, but finding clean, safe drinking water in the Stone Age is like finding a parking spot at the mall during Christmas shopping season. Except the consequences of failure involve death rather than just mild inconvenience. You spot what looks like a stream in the distance, shimmering invitingly in the morning sun. It's probably your best bet, assuming you can reach it without becoming something else's breakfast. The walk to the stream is your first real education in Stone Age physics. Every step is a negotiation with uneven ground, hidden roots, and the occasional snake that's just as surprised to see you as you are to see it. Your modern shoes are gone, replaced by bare feet that haven't built up the calluses necessary for this terrain. Within 50 yards, you're limping, and you haven't even encountered your first major predator yet. But you make it to the stream, somehow. The water looks clean enough, babbling cheerfully over smooth stones like it hasn't just served as a bathroom for every animal in a 50-mile radius. You cup your hands and drink deeply, because dehydration will kill you faster than whatever microscopic horrors are throwing a pool party in this water. The water is cold, shockingly so, and it hits your empty stomach like a liquid punch. Your body isn't sure whether to thank you or file a complaint. While you're crouched by the stream, congratulating yourself on staying alive for a whole 30 minutes, you hear it. A low growl that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Your blood freezes, which is actually impossible because blood freezing means you're dead. But it's a pretty accurate description of how you feel. Every instinct you didn't know you had suddenly springs to life, screaming at you to run, hide, or spontaneously evolve wings. You turn slowly, because sudden movements in the Stone Age are usually the last movements you ever make. Standing on the opposite bank of the stream is a cave bear, and it's looking at you like you're the daily special at its favorite restaurant. This bear is roughly the size of a small car, with teeth that would make a great white shark jealous, and a disposition that suggests it hasn't had its morning coffee either. Now, in modern times, your response to seeing a bear might be to slowly back away, while making yourself look bigger, or maybe play dead. These are excellent strategies if you're dealing with a modern bear who's had millions of years to develop a healthy fear of humans. But this is a Paleolithic cave bear, and humans are still on the menu. Playing dead is just making the bear's job easier. Your fight or flight response kicks in, and since fighting a creature that could use you as a toothpick isn't appealing, you choose flight. This is your second major mistake of the day. Running from a predator that's built for running is like challenging a fish to a swimming contest while wearing concrete boots. But your prehistoric brain isn't interested in logic right now. It's interested in getting you as far away from those teeth as possible. You run. Oh, how you run! Your feet pound against the ground, and every step sends shockwaves of pain through your soft, modern soles. Behind you, the bear is following with the casual confidence of someone who knows exactly how this chase is going to end. It's not even running at full speed. It's just keeping pace, probably enjoying the exercise. The terrain that seemed merely challenging during your walk to the stream now becomes a gauntlet of death traps. Roots grab at your ankles like nature's own tripwires. Rocks seem to jump directly under your feet, each one perfectly positioned to send you sprawling. Thorns reach out to scratch and tear at your skin, adding insult to injury and leaving a trail of blood that the bear probably appreciates as a helpful tracking aid. You leap over a fallen log, land badly, and feel something in your ankle protest with the kind of pain that suggests it's not going to be cooperating much longer. But you keep running because the alternative is becoming bear food, and your ankle's complaints seem less important than your continued existence. The chase continues for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. Your lungs are burning, your legs are screaming, and your ankle is sending increasingly urgent messages about its current structural integrity. Behind you, the bear maintains its steady pace, probably wondering when you're going to tire out so it can get on with its day. Finally, blessedly, You spot salvation, a cluster of large rocks that might, possibly, provide some kind of shelter or hiding spot. You pour on what little speed you have left and dive between two boulders, squeezing into a gap that's barely wide enough for your body. The rocks scrape against your skin, adding new wounds to your growing collection. But you're alive and temporarily safe. The bear arrives at your hiding spot and begins a thorough investigation. You can hear it snuffling around the rocks, its breath hot and moist, as it tries to figure out how to extract you from your stone sandwich. Its claws scrape against the rock with sounds that suggest it's giving serious consideration to remodeling your hiding place. You lie there, pressed against cold stone, trying to breathe quietly while your body shakes from exhaustion and terror. This is not how you imagined spending your morning. Your ankle throbs with each heartbeat. Your skin burns from dozens of scratches and scrapes, and you're beginning to realize that surviving in the Stone Age isn't just about being tough. It's about being tougher than everything else that wants to kill you. After what feels like an eternity, the snuffling sounds fade away. The bear has apparently decided that extracting you from the rocks would require more effort than you're worth. Or maybe it heard something more interesting elsewhere. You wait several more minutes before daring to peek out from your hiding spot. The coast appears clear, but you've learned enough about Stone Age life to know that appearances can be murderously deceiving. You extract yourself from between the rocks, a process that adds several new bruises to your collection and confirms that your ankle is definitely not operating at full capacity. Standing up requires significant effort and creative use of profanity that hasn't been invented yet. But you're alive, which is something, even if you're not sure how long that's going to last. The bear encounter has taught you several important lessons about Stone Age survival. First, running water attracts predators just as much as it attracts prey. Second, your modern body is pathetically inadequate for the demands of prehistoric life. Third, hiding between rocks is an effective short-term strategy but a terrible long-term life plan. Your ankle refuses to support your full weight, so you're reduced to hobbling, which is both painful and strategically questionable in an environment where mobility often means the difference between being predator and prey. You need to find somewhere safer to rest and figure out your next move, assuming you live long enough to have a next move. The sun is climbing higher now, and with it comes the promise of warmth, but also the certainty that other creatures are waking up and starting their daily hunts. You're no longer just competing with the early risers, you're about to face the full breakfast rush of the Paleolithic food chain. You spot what looks like a cave opening in a nearby cliff face. Caves offer shelter, but they also offer the possibility of encountering whatever already lives there. Stone Age caves aren't vacant real estate. They're usually occupied by things that are bigger, meaner, and more territorial than you. But with your injured ankle and growing collection of wounds, you need shelter more than you need to avoid potential roommate conflicts. The hobble to the cave takes longer than expected, partly because of your ankle and partly because you're now paranoid about every shadow, sound, and suspicious-looking rock. The Stone Age has a way of making you acutely aware that you're not the apex predator you thought you were. You're not even close to the apex. You're somewhere near the bottom, competing with rabbits and field mice for the title of most likely to be eaten. The cave entrance is partially hidden by vegetation, which could be either good camouflage or an ominous sign that something has been decorating. You approach cautiously, listening for any sounds that might indicate current occupancy. The cave is silent, but silence in the Stone Age can mean either safety or that something is holding very still, while deciding whether you're worth the effort of killing. You peer into the cave opening, and your eyes slowly adjust to the darkness. The cave appears empty, stretching back into shadows that could hide anything from harmless bats to something that would make the bear from this morning seem friendly by comparison. But empty is relative in the Stone Age. Empty usually just means the current residents are out hunting or sleeping deeper in the cave where you can't see them. Despite the risks, you enter the cave because the alternative is remaining outside where you've already nearly been eaten once today. The cave floor is uneven and littered with bones, which could be left over from previous occupants' meals or could be previous occupants. You try not to think too hard about the size of some of those bones, or why they look suspiciously similar to the bones you're currently wearing inside your own body. The cave provides immediate relief from the wind and sun, but it also provides the kind of darkness that makes every sound seem threatening and every shadow seem mobile. You settle against one wall, trying to take inventory of your situation, which is like taking inventory of the Titanic after it hit the iceberg. Technically possible, but ultimately depressing. Your ankle is swollen and painful, limiting your mobility significantly. Your skin is covered in scratches, cuts, and bruises that are already showing signs of infection in a world without antibiotics. You're hungry, thirsty again, and tired in a way that goes beyond physical exhaustion. This is the kind of tired that comes from the constant adrenaline rush of believing you're about to die. But you're not dead yet, which is something. Your ancestors managed to survive in these conditions long enough to eventually invent agriculture, writing, and indoor plumbing. Of course, your ancestors had several advantages you lack. They grew up in this environment. They had years of training and experience, and they were part of groups that shared knowledge and resources. You have none of these advantages. You're essentially a modern human trying to survive in conditions your species evolved to handle, but which you personally are completely unprepared for. The cave's silence is broken by a sound that makes your blood run cold again, the scratch and scrape of claws on stone. Something is approaching the cave entrance, something with sharp feet and probably sharper teeth. You press yourself against the cave wall, hoping to blend into the shadows and praying to gods that haven't been invented yet that whatever is coming will pass by without investigating. The scratching grows louder, accompanied by heavy breathing and the occasional snort. Through the cave entrance, you can see a shadow moving, something large and low to the ground. Your mind races through possibilities, none of them good. Cave lion. Hyena. Something else entirely that paleontologists haven't discovered yet, because it ate all the evidence. The creature appears in the cave entrance, and your heart stops. It's a cave hyena, built like a modern hyena but larger and with teeth that suggest it's been working out. Hyenas are scavengers, which would be comforting if you weren't currently injured and bleeding, essentially advertising yourself as tenderized meat. The hyena enters the cave cautiously, its nose working overtime as it investigates the various scents. It clearly knows something is in here, but it's taking its time to locate exactly what. This is both good and bad. Good because it gives you time to think, bad because thinking isn't producing any viable escape strategies. You remain perfectly still, which is easier said than done when every instinct is screaming at you to run, fight, or spontaneously develop superpowers. The hyena moves deeper into the cave, following scent trails that probably include the delightful aroma of your fear, sweat, and the various wounds you've collected. The cave that seemed like salvation 10 minutes ago now feels like a tomb. There's only one entrance, which means only one exit, and that exit is currently blocked by a creature that views you as an afternoon snack. Your hiding spot against the wall provides concealment, but no protection. If the hyena finds you, your options are limited to becoming hyena food or becoming hyena food while putting up a futile struggle. The hyena is methodical in its search, checking every shadow and crevice with the thoroughness of a professional investigator. It's clear that this cave is part of its regular territory, and you're the uninvited guest who's about to receive a very warm welcome. You can hear its claws clicking against the stone floor as it moves closer to your hiding spot. Your ankle chooses this moment to remind you of its current condition by sending a sharp spike of pain up your leg. You bite back a gasp, but the slight movement is enough to catch the hyena's attention. Its head snaps in your direction, and you find yourself staring into eyes that reflect what little light filters into the cave. Those eyes are calculating, intelligent, and hungry. The hyena approaches slowly, no longer searching but stalking. It knows exactly where you are now, and it's savoring the moment. Hyenas are patient hunters when they need to be, and this one apparently has all the time in the world to decide how it wants to handle its discovery. You're trapped between a rock wall and a creature that could bite through your leg bone like a bread stick. This is the moment when modern humans typically reach for their cell phones to call for help, But the nearest cell tower won't be built for another 40,000 years. You're on your own, and your options are running out faster than your hope. The hyena takes another step closer, and you make a decision that future anthropologists would probably classify as either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. You grab a loose rock from the cave floor and hurl it at the hyena while letting out the loudest, most aggressive yell you can manage. It's a Hail Mary play, but it's the only play you have left. The rock strikes the hyena in the shoulder, more surprising it than injuring it. But your yell fills the cave with echoes that make you sound larger and more threatening than you actually are. The hyena pauses, reassessing the situation. This isn't the cowering prey behavior it expected, and hyenas, despite their reputation, are actually quite cautious when faced with unexpected resistance. You follow up your rock, throwing with more yelling and the vigorous waving of your arms, trying to appear as large and dangerous as possible. It's the same strategy recommended for dealing with modern predators, except this predator hasn't read the same survival guides you have. But sometimes, just sometimes, acting crazy enough can convince a predator that you might not be worth the trouble. The hyena backs up a step, still watching you intently but no longer advancing. You continue your display of artificial aggression, picking up another rock and brandishing it like the world's most primitive weapon. Your voice is getting hoarse from yelling, but you keep it up because silence might be interpreted as surrender. For several tense minutes, you and the hyena engage in a staring contest that feels like it's being judged by death himself. The hyena is clearly reconsidering its lunch plans, while you're running out of rocks and vocal cords. This standoff can't last forever, and you're not sure you want to find out who's going to blink first. Then, miraculously, the hyena turns and trots out of the cave. Maybe it decided you were too much trouble, or maybe it heard something more interesting outside, or maybe it just lost its appetite. Whatever the reason, you're alive for the moment, though moment is the operative term in Stone Age survival. You slump against the cave wall, exhausted from terror and the effort of appearing threatening, when you feel about as dangerous as a particularly aggressive butterfly. Your throat is raw from yelling, your hands are shaking from adrenaline, and your ankle is throbbing in rhythm with your heartbeat. But you're not dead, which continues to be your primary achievement for the day. The cave now feels different, no longer a shelter, but a trap waiting to spring. Other predators know about this place, and word is probably getting out in the local carnivore community that there's a strange, noisy creature holed up in cave number 7. You need to find somewhere else to hide, but your mobility is severely compromised, and moving means exposing yourself to whatever else is wandering around looking for an easy meal. Outside the cave, the day is progressing, and with it comes the realization that you haven't eaten anything since arriving in the Stone Age. Hunger is beginning to compete with fear for your attention, and both are winning. Your body needs fuel, but everything that might qualify as food either can't be found, can't be caught, or will probably kill you if you try to eat it. The irony isn't lost on you that you're starving in an environment where early humans not only survived but thrived. The difference is knowledge, experience, and the kind of physical and mental toughness that comes from growing up in conditions where weakness equals death. You have none of these advantages, which explains why you're currently hiding in a cave, nursing multiple injuries, and wondering if this is how natural selection feels from the inside. You decide to venture out of the cave, partly because staying put feels like waiting to die, and partly because your thirst is becoming more urgent than your fear. The stream where you encountered the bear is out of the question, but there might be other water sources that don't come with complementary predators. Leaving the cave requires careful reconnaissance. You peer out from the entrance, scanning for movement, listening for sounds that don't belong, and generally behaving like someone who's learned that the world is full of things that want to eat him. The coast appears clear, but appearances have been consistently deceiving today. You emerge from the cave and immediately feel exposed. The sky seems larger somehow, and every bush looks like it could be hiding something with teeth. Your ankle protests every step, forcing you to maintain a pace that's more hobble than walk. If something decides to chase you again, the outcome is already predetermined. The landscape stretches out before you, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Somewhere out there is water, food, and possibly shelter that won't try to eat you. Also out there are bears, hyenas, saber-toothed cats, dire wolves, and probably several other creatures that haven't made their presence known yet. It's like playing the world's most dangerous game of hide and seek, except you're always it, and everyone else is better at hiding. You choose a direction that looks promising, which is to say it looks slightly less likely to contain immediate death than the other directions. Navigation in the Stone Age is largely guesswork, and your internal compass is calibrated for modern streets and GPS systems, not trackless wilderness where every landmark looks like every other landmark. Walking becomes a meditation on pain as your ankle reminds you with every step that it's not designed for this kind of abuse. Your modern feet, accustomed to supportive shoes and even surfaces, are developing blisters and cuts that would be minor annoyances in civilization, but are potential death sentences in an environment where infection means game over. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes heat that your pale, modern skin isn't prepared for. You're getting sunburned, adding another layer of discomfort to your growing collection of physical complaints. Your ancestors dealt with sun exposure by developing darker skin over generations, but you're working with the genetic legacy of people who invented sunscreen instead of relying on melanin. After what feels like hours of painful hobbling, you spot another water source, a small pond fed by a spring. It's farther from the main game trails, which might mean fewer predators, but also fewer opportunities to scavenge leftovers from other hunters' kills. Not that you'd know how to safely scavenge anyway, or how to tell fresh carrion from the kind that will introduce you to prehistoric food poisoning. The pond is surrounded by vegetation that could provide concealment while you drink, but could also provide concealment for things waiting to drink you. Every approach to water in the Stone Age is a calculated risk, and your calculation skills are proving inadequate for the complexity of the problem. You approach the pond cautiously, alert for any signs of recent predator activity. The mud around the water's edge is soft and holds tracks well, which is both informative and terrifying. You can see the prints of various animals that have visited recently, some you can identify, others that look like they belong to creatures from your nightmares. The water looks clean, but looks are deceiving when it comes to prehistoric water sources. This pond could be teeming with parasites, bacteria, and other microscopic party crashers that your immune system has never encountered. But dehydration will kill you faster than waterborne diseases, so you cup your hands and drink, hoping your body can handle whatever biological surprises await. The water is cool and sweet, a momentary relief from the growing catalogue of discomforts. You drink deeply, knowing that hydration is critical, but also knowing that every moment spent at the water's edge increases your visibility to predators. You're like a deer at a watering hole, except deer are actually equipped for this environment. While you're drinking, you notice something that makes your blood run cold, yet again ripples in the water that aren't caused by your hands. Something large is moving beneath the surface, something that has decided to investigate the strange creature disturbing its pond. In modern times, this might be a fish or a turtle. In the Stone Age, bodies of water can hide creatures that make land predators seem cuddly by comparison. You back away from the water's edge as something breaks the surface. It's a crocodilian, but not the relatively modest crocodiles you might see in a modern zoo. This is a prehistoric monster, easily twice the size of its modern descendants, with teeth that look like they were designed by someone with serious anger management issues. The creature slides partially onto the bank, water streaming from its armored hide as it considers whether you're worth the energy expenditure of a full-scale attack. Its eyes are ancient and intelligent, the eyes of something that has been perfecting the art of killing since before your species learned to walk upright. You're trapped between fight, flight, and freeze, and none of these options seem particularly appealing when facing a creature that could bite you in half without working up an appetite. Your injured ankle eliminates flight as a viable option, and fighting something with that many teeth and that much armor seems like an express ticket to becoming prehistoric fertilizer. You choose freeze, hoping that staying perfectly still might convince the crocodilian that you're not worth the effort. This strategy works better with some predators than others, and you're about to find out which category giant prehistoric crocodiles fall into. The creature watches you with the patience of something that has learned to wait for the perfect moment to strike. Its tail moves slowly back and forth in the water, a hypnotic motion that might be the last thing you ever see. Time seems to stretch out, each second feeling like an hour as you wait to see whether you'll live to see another minute. Then, without warning, the crocodilian slides back into the water and disappears beneath the surface. Maybe it decided you weren't threatening enough to be worth killing, or maybe it's just repositioning for a better attack angle. Either way, you don't stick around to find out which interpretation is correct. You back away from the pond as quickly as your injured ankle allows, which is to say not very quickly at all. Every step takes you farther from the immediate threat, but also farther from the water source you desperately need. This is the cruel mathematics of Stone Age survival. Every solution creates new problems, and every safe choice eliminates necessary resources. The encounter with the crocodilian drives home, a point that's been building all day. You're not equipped for this environment in any meaningful way. Your body lacks the physical adaptations, your mind lacks the knowledge and experience, and your spirit is rapidly running out of the resilience necessary to keep fighting for survival in a world that seems designed to kill you. But giving up isn't really an option, partly because you're too stubborn to quit, and partly because giving up in the Stone Age usually involves being eaten, which seems like an unsatisfying way to end your prehistoric adventure. So you keep moving, keep looking for opportunities, and keep hoping that dumb luck will compensate for your complete lack of survival skills. The day is wearing on, and your hunger is becoming a constant companion, gnawing at your stomach with increasing urgency. You've now gone an entire day without food, which your modern body interprets as a crisis of epic proportions. Your ancestors could probably go days without eating when necessary, but your body is accustomed to regular meals and snacks, and it's filing increasingly urgent complaints about the current situation. You spot what looks like berries on a nearby bush, and your stomach immediately votes in favor of investigation. Berries seem safe enough after all. How dangerous can fruit be? This thought process demonstrates exactly why you wouldn't last a day. In the Stone Age, the assumption that anything that looks harmless actually is harmless. The berries are small, dark, and plentiful, hanging in clusters that seem to invite consumption. They look similar to berries you might find in a modern grocery store, which should be your first warning that appearances can be murderously deceiving when it comes to Stone Age foraging. You pick one berry and examine it closely, as if staring at it long enough will reveal whether it's safe to eat. Unfortunately, the berry doesn't come with warning labels or ingredient lists, and your knowledge of prehistoric botany is limited to plants are green, and some of them are probably edible. The hunger wins out over caution, and you eat the berry. It tastes sweet, almost too sweet, with an underlying bitterness that might be a warning, or might just be the natural flavor of prehistoric fruit. One berry becomes two, then three, as your starving body overrules your increasingly quiet voice of reason. Within minutes, you realize you've made a mistake. Your stomach begins to cramp, not the gentle discomfort of hunger, but the sharp, twisting pain of something going very wrong inside your digestive system. The berries were beautiful, plentiful, and probably toxic to anything that wasn't specifically adapted to process their particular blend of natural poisons. The cramping intensifies, accompanied by nausea that comes in waves like a tide of misery. You're about to experience Stone Age food poisoning, which is like modern food poisoning except there's no emergency room, no activated charcoal, and no sympathetic medical professionals to monitor your condition while you recover. You collapse near the berry bush, doubled over in pain as your body tries to deal with whatever toxic compounds you've just introduced to your system. The irony is bitter. You've managed to poison yourself with the first potentially edible thing you found, demonstrating a level of incompetence that would be impressive if it weren't so potentially fatal. The nausea builds to a crescendo, and you begin vomiting with the kind of intensity that suggests your body is trying to expel not just the berries, but possibly your entire digestive system. This is your body's emergency response to poisoning, and while it might save your life, it's also leaving you weaker and more dehydrated than before. Between waves of nausea, you have time to consider the broader implications of your situation. You're injured, poisoned, dehydrated, and completely alone in an environment where any sign of weakness attracts predators. The vomiting, while potentially life-saving, is also advertising your location to every scavenger in the area through both sound and smell. The poisoning runs its course over what feels like hours, but is probably much shorter. Your body eventually stops trying to turn itself inside out, leaving you weak, shaky, and thoroughly educated about the dangers of prehistoric foraging. You've learned an important lesson about Stone Age survival. When in doubt, don't eat it, and when really in doubt, definitely don't eat it. You lie on the ground, too weak to move and too vulnerable to stay put. This is the kind of situation that separates successful Stone Age humans from fossil records. Your ancestors would have known which berries were safe, or they would have had group members who could share that knowledge. You have neither advantage, which explains why you're currently sprawled next to a toxic berry bush, wondering if this is how your story ends. The sun is beginning to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that would be beautiful if you weren't too miserable to appreciate them. The approach of evening brings new concerns. Night in the Stone Age is when the really dangerous predators come out to hunt, and you're in no condition to run, hide, or fight. You force yourself to sit up, fighting waves of dizziness and weakness. Movement seems impossible, but staying in the open is suicide. You need shelter, water, and time to recover. But finding any of these things requires energy you don't have and mobility you've lost. The landscape around you offers few options for concealment. There are scattered rocks and bushes, but nothing that would provide real protection from a determined predator. The cave where you hid earlier is too far away given your current condition, and you're not sure you could make it there even if you were willing to risk another encounter with cave hyenas. You settle for the dubious shelter of a cluster of large rocks, wedging yourself into a gap that's barely large enough for your body. It's not much protection, but it's better than lying in the open like an invitation to dinner. The rocks are cold against your skin, adding another layer of discomfort to your growing collection of miseries. As darkness falls, the sounds of the Stone Age night begin. In the distance, you can hear the howl of wolves, the roar of big cats, and other sounds that don't correspond to any animals you can identify. This is the soundtrack of a world where humans haven't yet established dominance, where we're still just another species trying to survive in a landscape full of better, adapted predators. Your hiding spot between the rocks provides concealment, but no warmth, and the temperature is dropping with the sun. Hypothermia becomes a real concern, adding another potential cause of death to your already impressive list. You're cold, weak, poisoned, injured, and hiding from creatures that could kill you without breaking stride. This is the moment when the full reality of Stone Age life hits you. Survival isn't about being tough or brave or resourceful, though those things help. Survival is about having the right knowledge, the right physical adaptations, and the right support systems. Your ancestors had tribes, extended families, shared knowledge, and generations of accumulated wisdom about how to live in this environment. You have none of these advantages. You're a modern human trying to survive with nothing, but instincts that have been dulled by millennia of civilization. Your body expects regular meals, clean water, medical care, and protection from the elements. The Stone Age offers none of these things, and your expectations are as outdated as your survival skills. The night grows colder, and you huddle deeper into your rocky hiding place, trying to conserve what little body heat you have left. Sleep seems impossible under these conditions, but exhaustion is a powerful force, and your body is running on empty after a day of terror, injury, and poisoning. Despite everything, you doze fitfully, jerking awake at every sound, real or imagined. Your dreams are filled with predators, poisonous berries, and the growing certainty that you're not going to see another sunrise. Each time you wake, the night seems darker, colder, and more hostile than before. Somewhere in the distance, something screams, a sound that's part roar, part shriek, and entirely terrifying. It's the kind of sound that prehistoric humans probably heard right before becoming prehistoric meals. You press yourself deeper into the rocks, hoping that whatever made that sound is too busy eating something else to investigate your hiding spot. The hours crawl by with agonizing slowness. Your body aches from the cramped position, your ankle throbs with each heartbeat, and your throat is raw from thirst. You're experiencing every discomfort simultaneously, like a preview of what death by exposure might feel like. But slowly, impossibly, the eastern horizon begins to lighten. You've survived your first night in the Stone Age, though survived might be an overly optimistic description of your current condition. You're alive, but barely. And the new day brings fresh challenges that you're even less equipped to handle than you were yesterday. As dawn breaks, you take inventory of your situation, which is like taking inventory of a natural disaster. Everything is worse than it was before, and the prospects for improvement are slim. Your ankle is more swollen. Your various cuts and scratches show signs of infection, and your body is dehydrated to the point where your lips are cracking and your tongue feels like sandpaper. The berry poisoning has left you weak and shaky, with stomach cramps that come in waves like aftershocks from an earthquake. You're hungry again, desperately so, but the memory of last night's toxic adventure has made you paranoid about eating anything that doesn't come with a nutrition label and FDA approval. You extract yourself from your rocky hiding place with all the grace of a rusty gate, every movement accompanied by protests from joints that weren't designed for sleeping on stone. Standing up requires multiple attempts and creative use of the rocks for support, and once you're upright, you have to lean against the stone to keep from falling over. The morning sun should feel warming and hopeful, but instead it just highlights how precarious your situation has become. You're like a smartphone trying to run on 1% battery while simultaneously running every app at maximum capacity. System failure is imminent, and there's no charger in sight. Your reflection in a nearby puddle of rainwater reveals a creature that barely resembles the confident modern human who started this adventure yesterday. Your hair is matted with dirt and debris, your skin is a patchwork of cuts, bruises, and insect bites, and your eyes have the wild, slightly desperate look of someone who's realized they're in over their head but can't figure out how to get out. The puddle itself presents another dilemma. It's water, which you desperately need, but it's also a small, stagnant pool that's probably hosting a party for every waterborne pathogen in the area. Drinking it might keep you alive long enough to die from something more interesting than dehydration, or it might just accelerate your appointment with Stone Age mortality statistics. You drink from the puddle anyway, because the alternative is certain death from dehydration, and uncertain death from contaminated water at least offers the possibility of living long enough to find a better solution. The water tastes like mud and regret, but it's wet, and wet is what your body is demanding with increasing urgency. The act of drinking reminds you that you still haven't solved the food problem, and hunger is beginning to feel less like discomfort and more like a medical emergency. Your body is starting to consume itself, breaking down muscle tissue to fuel essential functions, which is evolution's way of saying you're running out of time to find calories. But food in the Stone Age isn't just about finding something edible. It's about finding something edible that won't kill you, can be caught or gathered with your limited abilities, and won't attract predators while you're trying to eat it. It's like playing three-dimensional chess while blindfolded and under fire. You remember seeing some insects yesterday, which seems disgusting until you realize that insects are actually an excellent source of protein, and many of them are perfectly safe to eat. Of course, telling the safe ones from the dangerous ones requires knowledge you don't have, and catching them requires speed and coordination that your current condition doesn't allow. But desperation is a powerful motivator, and you start hunting for bugs with the enthusiasm of someone who's realized that pride is a luxury they can't afford. You find some grubs under a rotting log, fat and white, and completely revolting to your modern sensibilities. They look like something that should come with a warning label and a tetanus shot. Your stomach growls loudly enough to potentially attract predators, and you make the executive decision to eat the grubs before your better judgment can talk you out of it. They taste exactly as horrible as you expected, with a texture that's somehow both squishy and crunchy, like nature's own cruel joke about survival food. But they're protein, and protein is what your body needs to continue functioning. You force down several more, trying not to think about what they might have been eating while they were growing fat under that log. Your modern digestive system receives them with the same enthusiasm it might show for a glass of motor oil, but it accepts them as fuel because fuel is fuel when you're running on empty. The grubs help, but they're barely enough to take the edge off your hunger. You need more substantial food, but everything substantial in the Stone Age is either fast enough to run away, dangerous enough to fight back, or smart enough to hide where you can't find it. You're hunting prey that doesn't want to be caught with tools you don't have and skills you never learned. You spot a rabbit in the distance, and for a moment, hope flares in your chest. Rabbits are meat, real meat. The kind of protein that could sustain you for days if you could catch it. The rabbit spots you at the same time, and what follows is less a hunt than a demonstration of why humans needed to invent tools before they could become effective predators. The rabbit bolts, and you give chase, which is optimistic considering your injured ankle and weakened condition. The chase lasts approximately 3 seconds before the rabbit disappears into brush, so thick that following would require a machete and hazard pay. You're left standing there, breathing hard and wondering if this is what rock bottom looks like, or if there are still deeper levels of prehistoric incompetence to explore. The failed rabbit hunt drives home another crucial point about Stone Age survival. Hunting isn't just about catching animals, it's about catching them efficiently enough that you burn fewer calories than you gain. Your brief, pathetic chase probably consumed more energy than the rabbit would have provided even if you'd caught it, which is the kind of math that leads to starvation. Your ancestors solved this problem by hunting in groups, using tools, and targeting animals they actually had a chance of catching. They also had the advantage of growing up in this environment, learning from experienced hunters, and developing the physical conditioning necessary for sustained pursuit of prey. You have none of these advantages, which explains why you're currently standing alone in the wilderness, defeated by a rabbit. The sun is climbing higher, and with it comes the heat that your pale, modern skin is poorly equipped to handle. You're getting sunburned again, adding another layer of discomfort to your already impressive collection. Your ancestors dealt with sun exposure through generations of genetic adaptation and protective clothing made from animal hides. Your genetic adaptation is limited to whatever suntan you might have gotten during weekend barbecues, and your clothing situation is best described as non-existent. You need shade, but shade in the Stone Age often comes with its own set of risks. Trees provide excellent sun protection, but also provide excellent hiding spots for predators that specialize in dropping out of branches onto unsuspecting prey. Rock overhangs offer shade, but might be home to bears, hyenas, or other creatures that consider you an uninvited guest in their living room. You settle for the minimal shade provided by a large boulder, pressing yourself against its relatively cool surface and trying to conserve energy. This is becoming a pattern. Every decision involves choosing between different types of potentially fatal outcomes, and the best you can hope for is to postpone the inevitable rather than actually solving your problems. The rest in the shade gives you time to think, which turns out to be a mixed blessing. On one hand, thinking allows you to assess your situation and plan your next moves. On the other hand, honest assessment reveals that your situation is deteriorating rapidly and your options are limited to various forms of slow death. You're dehydrated despite drinking from questionable water sources, malnourished despite eating bugs, injured and getting worse, and completely alone in an environment that's actively trying to kill you. Your modern knowledge is useless here, your modern body is inadequate for the demands, and your modern expectations are so far removed from Stone Age reality that they're actually counterproductive. But somehow, against all odds and logic, you're still alive. It's been over 24 hours since you arrived in the Stone Age, which is longer than you would have predicted when this adventure started. You've survived bear encounters, hyena confrontations, poisonous berries, and a night of exposure. You're like a cosmic joke that's gone on longer than anyone expected. The question now is whether you can survive long enough to find some kind of sustainable routine, or whether you're just postponing the inevitable. Sustainable Stone Age living requires skills you don't have, knowledge you can't acquire quickly enough, and physical capabilities you weren't born with. You're essentially trying to run modern software on Paleolithic hardware, and the system crashes are becoming more frequent. As you rest in the meager shade, you become aware of a new sound, voices in the distance, human voices. For a moment, your heart leaps with hope. Other people mean potential help, shared knowledge, and the possibility of joining a group that actually knows how to survive in this environment. But then reality sets in. These aren't fellow time travelers who share your modern background and confusion. These are actual Stone Age humans. People who have spent their entire lives mastering the skills you lack, developing the physical conditioning you can't match, and learning the social dynamics of prehistoric tribal life. To them, you're not a potential ally, you're a strange, weak, possibly dangerous outsider who might bring disease, competition, or trouble. The voices are getting closer, and you face another critical decision: reveal yourself and hope for acceptance, or hide and hope they pass by without discovering you. Both options carry significant risks. Revealing yourself might result in help, but it might also result in violence from people who view strangers as threats to their survival. Hiding might keep you safe, but it also means passing up your only chance at accessing the knowledge and support you desperately need. You choose to hide, partly because you're a coward and partly because you're too weak to run if the encounter goes badly. You press yourself deeper into the shadow of the boulder, trying to become invisible while straining to hear the approaching voices. They're speaking in a language that predates any modern tongue, a collection of sounds that somehow conveys meaning without resembling anything you've ever heard. Through a gap in the rocks, you catch glimpses of the group as they pass 3 adults and 2 children, all moving with the easy confidence of people who belong in this environment. They're carrying tools you can't identify, wearing clothing made from animal hides, and scanning their surroundings with the constant vigilance of experienced survivors. The adults are lean and muscular in a way that comes from daily physical challenges rather than gym memberships. Their skin is weathered and scarred, telling stories of encounters with predators, accidents, and the general wear and tear of Stone Age living. The children stay close to the adults, but move with their own surprising competence, already learning the skills that will keep them alive in this harsh world. They pass within 20 feet of your hiding spot, close enough that you can see the intelligent alertness in their eyes and the way they communicate with subtle gestures and expressions. These are people who have spent their entire lives reading the environment for signs of danger, opportunity, and change. They would have spotted you immediately if they'd been looking in the right direction. But they don't see you, and after a few minutes that feel like hours, they disappear into the distance, their voices fading until you're alone again with your problems, and your growing certainty that you're not cut out for this lifestyle. The encounter drives home just how far removed you are from the kind of human who can thrive in the Stone Age. They were everything you're not: physically capable, environmentally adapted, socially connected, and completely at home in their world. The missed opportunity to make contact with other humans weighs heavily on you as the day progresses. You might have just passed up your only chance at survival, but approaching them would have required a level of courage and social skill that you're not sure you possess. The Stone Age doesn't just demand physical survival, it demands the ability to navigate complex social dynamics where making the wrong impression can literally be fatal. Your afternoon is spent in a growing haze of weakness and disorientation. The combination of dehydration, malnutrition, injury, and exhaustion is creating a feedback loop where each problem makes the others worse. You're like a phone trying to run on a dying battery while simultaneously running GPS, streaming video, and making calls. System failure is not just possible, it's inevitable. You attempt to find more food, but your search becomes increasingly desperate and less effective. You try to catch more insects, but lack the coordination needed to grab anything faster than a sedentary grub. You look for more berries, but can't tell the safe ones from the toxic ones, and your stomach still hasn't forgiven you for yesterday's poisoning experiment. Every potential food source presents the same dilemma. You need calories desperately, but eating the wrong thing could kill you faster than starvation. It's like playing Russian roulette with your digestive system, except most of the chambers are loaded, and you don't know which ones are safe. As the second evening approaches, you realize that you're unlikely to survive another night of exposure. Your body is shutting down in stages, conserving energy for essential functions while sacrificing everything else. Your thinking is becoming fuzzy, your movements are becoming unsteady, and your grip on hope is becoming increasingly tenuous. You find another rocky outcrop for shelter, but this time you're too weak to properly wedge yourself into a protective position. You slump against the stone like a discarded toy, barely conscious and rapidly approaching the point where consciousness becomes optional anyway. The sounds of the Stone Age night begin again, the howls, roars, and shrieks that soundtrack a world where humans haven't yet learned to dominate their environment. But tonight, these sounds seem more distant, as if you're already beginning to fade out of the world that's been trying to kill you for 2 days. Your last coherent thought before exhaustion claims you is a recognition of just how remarkable your ancestors were. They didn't just survive in this environment, they thrived in it well enough to eventually develop agriculture, build cities, and create the modern world that made you soft enough to die in the environment where humanity was born. You wouldn't last a day in the Stone Age because you were never supposed to. You're the product of thousands of generations of human innovation and adaptation, each generation making life a little easier for the next. Your ancestors climbed the ladder of civilization one rung at a time, and you're standing on the top rung wondering how they ever managed to survive on the bottom ones. The Stone Age didn't kill you because it was evil or cruel. It killed you because it was honest. It stripped away all the cushions and safety nets that modern life provides and showed you what raw survival actually requires. You failed not because you were weak or cowardly, but because you were playing a game with rules you never learned, using tools you never developed, in a world you were never designed to inhabit alone. Your failure was comprehensive and inevitable, a perfect demonstration of why human civilization exists in the first place. We built cities and developed technology and created complex social systems precisely because Stone Age life was too difficult for most individuals to survive on their own. Civilization isn't about making life soft, it's about making life possible for people who aren't exceptional survivalists. As consciousness fades, you have just enough awareness left to appreciate the irony. You died in the Stone Age, not because you were transported there by some cosmic accident, but because you tried to survive it with a modern human's skills, knowledge, and expectations. You brought a smartphone to a knife fight, except the knife fight was actually more like a battle royale with prehistoric monsters, and your smartphone was dead anyway. The Stone Age claimed another victim, but this time it was a victim who never belonged there in the first place. You were a time traveler visiting a world your species had evolved beyond, and the world treated you exactly as it would treat any other soft, unprepared creature that wandered into its harsh embrace. Your 2-day adventure in humanity's birthplace had taught you the most important lesson of all. The Stone Age wasn't humanity's golden age of noble savagery and natural living. It was humanity's boot camp, the brutal training ground that forged our species into something capable of surviving long enough to build a better world. And in that better world, safely insulated from the immediate demands of survival, humans like you could develop philosophy, art, literature, and the luxury of wondering what it would be like to live in simpler times. The answer, as you discovered too late, is that simpler times were only simple in retrospect. When you were actually living them, they were complicated, dangerous, and usually brief. The Stone Age taught you respect for your ancestors, but it also taught you gratitude for your descendants, the ones who built the world that kept you alive for your entire modern life. You wouldn't last a day in the Stone Age, but your ancestors did last, day after day, year after year, long enough to ensure that their descendants would never have to. In the end, that was their greatest achievement, not just surviving the Stone Age, but surviving it so thoroughly that future generations could safely forget how to do it themselves. They climbed out of the prehistoric darkness and built ladders for the rest of us. Ladders so sturdy that we could afford to forget how dangerous the ground below actually was. Your Stone Age adventure was over before it really began. But in those 2 days of failure, you learned more about human resilience, ingenuity, and determination than you had learned in years of modern comfort. You learned that your ancestors weren't just tough, they were miraculous. And you learned that the modern world, for all its problems and complications, was actually humanity's greatest success story, the story of a species that refused to accept the brutal terms of survival that nature offered. You wouldn't last a day in the Stone Age, and that's exactly as it should be. You were never meant to be a Paleolithic human. You were meant to be the descendant of Paleolithic humans, the inheritor of their struggles, and the beneficiary of their victories. Your failure in the Stone Age was actually their success, proof that they had built something better for their children's children's children. And so you died in the Stone Age not as a failure, but as a testament to how far humanity had come. Your death was meaningless in the context of prehistoric survival, but it was profoundly meaningful in the context of human progress. You died because your ancestors had succeeded so completely at the task of civilization that their descendants could no longer survive without it. The Stone Age claimed your life, but in doing so, it revealed the true magnitude of what your ancestors had accomplished. They hadn't just survived in an impossible world. They had changed that world into something survivable. They hadn't just adapted to their environment, they had adapted their environment to themselves. Your brief, failed adventure in the Stone Age was really a love letter to every human who had ever lived and died to make your soft, comfortable, modern life possible. You died in honor of their memory, and in recognition of their incredible gift. The civilization that made your death in the Stone Age a tragedy, rather than just another casualty in humanity's daily struggle for survival. The darkness claimed you, but somewhere in the future, billions of humans would live safe, comfortable lives because your ancestors had refused to let the darkness claim them. And that was worth dying for, even if you didn't last a day.